Okay, we'll commence the meeting for the Finance and Projects Committee for today, 21st of February. Just acknowledge those that are joining us on live stream and welcome to the meeting. So first off, we'll cover off apologies. I have apologies from Councillor Campbell and Mayor Clark. Are there any other apologies for the meeting?
Move to accept it.
Okay, can I them? Okay, thanks, Darren, and thanks. Oh,
Mayor Clark is writing.
he might have just. Yeah, I've got Leslie to second that.
We actually just got a call. Yeah.
We'll retract that apology from the Mayor Clark. He's just arrived. Okay, are there any declarations of interest in relation to the items on our agenda today? No? Okay, thank you. Okay, public forum, there's no one in public forum today that I've been advised of? No? Okay, cool. So the item 4 on our agenda is the minutes of the Finance and Projects Committee meeting held on the 24th of January.
Move those.
Thank you, Leslie. Second to Barry. Thank you. Any? Oh, sorry. All those in favour?
No, can I make one comment, Mr. Chair? Just that I haven't actually reviewed the document, briefing document that's noted in the minutes. It's in action.
That you haven't reviewed it.
I haven't reviewed it to date, but I will ensure to do that.
Okay, thank you. Can we note that? Okay, all those in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. Okay, the city streetscapes cost update, and Russell. Welcome, Russell. Thank you for your paper.
Afternoon, and thank you, Mr. Chair. My report today really just, I guess, updates us as we are approaching the completion of our project. We continue to look for a date that's at the end of March. That's still our ongoing target date, and just happy to say that we are continuing to track within our budget, or the budget that's allocated to the project, 20.8 million. So we managed a number of risks, and I guess the weather has been reasonably fortunate for us for the last while, and the progress is good. So we're still going to get there at the end of March, as we were committing to. Happy to receive any questions.
Thank you. Any questions, Rangi?
Thanks, Chair. Russell, the original pricing for that stage 1 was around, was it 18 or something, and then there was another amount for play or something, and we're using up the play stuff to keep it under budget.
Correct. The overall allocated budget is 20.8 to the whole project for that stage.
Yeah. So the sacrifice of some play stuff is there.
That's correct, but we continue to have some contingency that we are managing. So I guess the opportunity could be to consider those at the conclusion of the project.
Right. Thanks.
Do we know what the number is on that contingency roughly?
I don't have it with me, sorry. But
Okay, sorry, Erin.
Sorry, the only piece I was just going to clarify was that Councillor Pottinger is correct around the play, but also around the shelter component was the other element that we sought approval to essentially reduce the scope to remain within the budget.
Okay, thank you. No further questions or comment in relation to that report? Okay, can I have a mover and acceptor that we accept those recommendations within that, please? Thanks, Rangi, and
Seconded.
thanks, Leslie. Okay, all those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thanks, Russell. Okay, the next item is the second quarter performance update. So, Rhiannon, welcome.
Thank you, Chair. So I will speak to the non-financial performance and then hand across to Patricia to speak about the financial performance. So the service levels continue to track pretty much similarly to last quarter. So that trend that we saw last quarter of a return to visitor numbers across the council is holding strong. Currently 65 of the 99 performance measures are currently on target. I'll just focus on the changes since the last quarter. Some of those are relating to roading, just having now some data in there, sadly, about fatal road traffic accidents, which remains an area of concern. In solid waste, there's some new data that's become available, and that trend in landfill rubbish has just become an area of concern. In the parks and recreation area, probably just one thing to flag around that customer satisfaction survey, it's so close to the edge of the target. It is within that statistical variance, so really would put not much focus on that change in the parks and recreation result. And the library is now reporting that its collection performance, due to those issues that they were having with transport of materials, has now come right. So not huge stories from last time, but just saying that those trends that we were seeing are continuing.
Okay, thank you. Any questions in relation to the report? Rangi?
Well, I may be a bit early asking this question because I've asked for other data that we expect in April, but that plus 503,000 in solid waste, is that generated through the red bin collection? Rather than, because anything taken to the transfer, if you take rubbish to the transfer, it's being paid for, so that's not an added cost. But variance in the red bin collection, I imagine.
Just going to pass that question to the GM of Infrastructure.
Thanks, Rhiannon. As I understand it, and I can seek some clarification, but I understand that's a combination of the red bin as well as the contamination through the MRF. That's primarily around those tightening up of requirements of what's acceptable versus the MRF performing at a different level to what it has previously. So we don't have any concerns with that. It's primarily around that more critical requirements around what's accepted.
You know, it's just the variance. Obviously, this is, again, like last year, was $700,000 increase. This is just obviously this is WasteNet's jurisdiction to try and minimise this. We got any idea when we might be having that first WasteNet meeting?
So there is one, as I understand it, the schedule agenda is just being finalised at the moment. I actually thought something may have already gone out, but I'll check where that's at.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. So just on that matter, so when will the council see a report on that, on the WasteNet issues and challenges and opportunities?
Well, what I've done as Chair of Infrastructure, I've asked separately for a last 3-year prior COVID month-by-month analysis of red bin data. Okay, what COVID had an effect on, and other trends, as well as the contamination from the recycling. So that's going to come about April or something like that, and that'll hopefully show us what's happening in Invercargill. I just can't believe that red bin is increasing at that dramatic rate, but the data will hopefully shed light on that.
Because it's compounding, isn't it? Did you say 700 the previous year and now
Yes,
500? So,
and that was straight on top of rates. That was unexpected. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a concern.
I think what I'd say is that the overall trend upward, there's definitely still an upward trend in the amount of waste going to landfill. It's not a significant upward trend. It's generally sitting below 5%, but it is there. I think what we've spoken about before, though, is that, yes, that's going to have a financial impact on households. And we all know that there's a very strong, I guess you'd want to say, policy being set by central government around increasing that cost of waste generation in an attempt to try to drive down waste generation.
Yeah, so just carrying on from there, I think it's important is that the figures I asked for also were the increases from the gate fee at AB Lime, and that's made out of 4 components. It's AB Lime's fee, it's the government emission trading scheme tax on every tonne, it's a fee from WasteNet, an administration fee, and there's also the $30 levy imposed by government to re-inject into waste minimisation plans. So that's the gate fee, and that's been moving up. But what's been worrying me is the increased volume. And at the last infrastructure meeting, this is where it still doesn't make any sense, is that the presentation by Peter Nolan showed that we were tracking downwards. We were the average we've been working on for the last 10 years is 650 kilograms per capita, and we were down at 480. And that's why this doesn't seem to make any sense, that we've got more tonnage. But yeah, that's why I'm looking forward to the figures in April.
That all those points will be come to us through infrastructure.
Correct. Correct.
Okay. Yeah. But obviously there's a financial implication, right? And it's creeping. So. Okay. Patricia.
So I'll switch over to the financial performance. So pretty much for the first 6 months of the year, we're pretty much on track against budget. But we do note that revenue is down slightly, but it's just a timing issue at the moment. There is nothing to be concerned about within the revenue and the expenditure, so we're pretty much sitting on par. And we have put through some small forecast changes as well. In relation to capital delivery, the given some of the changes requested by council in future years, that's had an impact on the current year, and we will be forecast is based on a $59.2 million capital spend. That's down from 79.8 that we had in the annual plan, and at the moment that is progressing against that plan.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions in relation to the financial? Mayor Clark?
Yep. Sorry, just to go back on the previous report, which was the quarterly 2 performance result. Just on page 9 of board books, or page 2 of the report, it talks the roadmap to renewal. It says up there, Rugby Park, Surrey Park and City Streets Stage 2 are paused, but it seems to have missed the fact that we've also paused the upgrade of this building, which is a CAB building.
Rhiannon?
I can speak to that, Mayor Clark. That is simply because this building is not in the roadmap to renewal.
Okay.
It's a separate project.
Okay, thank you. And the last issue is on page 4 of that report for me, which is the capital program has decreased the forecast amount of borrowing required this year by 15 million. Is that a year-to-date figure, or is that the overall figure for the year? Because I would have thought when you looked at the programs that we've got paused, there's a much larger capital pause, I guess, than what's signalled there. So is that just a...
That's the current year pause, so the pause
Year
for
to
the
date.
20 year to date.
Okay, thank you.
Ricky?
Look, just want to comment on the one particular part of the roadmap to renewal delivery, and that's Anderson's Park. Now, the renewal's been done with the building, earthquake proofed, and it's now up and running as a brilliant asset. I went to a luncheon a couple of weeks back, put on by the caterers there, and it was a ticketed thing. It was completely sold out, and a brilliant day under the big elm tree at the back, and everyone got to walk through the place. I think it's brilliant that it's now in use and being managed. They actually sell up the tickets first, then they do the event. So there's no. It seems to be obviously profitable for those doing it. So it's well done, I think.
Yeah, it's good feedback. Thank you. Okay, any other questions in relation to the financial component of the report? Okay, so that being the case, can I have a mover and a seconder to receive those recommendations within that? Rangi and Alan? Okay, all those in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. So next, the Projects Management Office update. Lee, welcome.
Chair. We'll just do a quick highlight through the different projects. So City Streets, as Russell's also spoken to a bit earlier, the team is still tracking an end of March completion. We're just watching that with close eyes. Obviously the weather has been kind to us of late. A little bit of a turn in the forecast ahead of us. There's a lot of small items that will need to be picked up, in those last weeks. So, but there's a bit of confidence now that we'll get to the end of this one. So yeah, good to see it coming to an end. Stead Street, Stop Bank. We had a little bit of a delay with the Wales tails, proven to be a bit more of a technical challenge, welding that up. But the guys are working well on that. We have the walker ends installed now, so this is the final piece of artwork still to go in place. The dry period we've just been through, we paused some of the planting on Airport Ave as well, so for obvious reasons, and I understand once the weather gets a bit better, the team will crack back into that. So I believe March now for the install of the Wales tail, which is a little bit later than we wanted, and then some sort of formal opening the team are working on sort of mid to late April, I believe, for that. The project's tracking well to budget with a small return back to the programme forecast, which is great. Branks on Watermain. So stage 1, we're just about there. All the pipe is just about in the ground. We're literally weeks away from putting that last sections in the ground, which is great. We're out of the way of the Wakatagi roundabout works on time, so we haven't got in the way of them, which has been great as well. Stage 2, we've closed the tendering on that, and we're working on that tender at the moment, and I obviously can't talk too much about that. That's still proven to be a bit of a challenge, getting stage 2 across the line. But stage 1 and the drill shots have gone reasonably well for us. A little bit later than planned, but some poor ground conditions and a few other bits and pieces. But generally, I think for a project that size, it's gone well for us. Rugby Park. So stage 1, as I've previously reported, is complete. The final documentation is sitting with the building control team. Stage 2, we've started to scope that up. So we've had the engineers and that through the main stand. We've got a structural set of drawings there for that. And we've also been asked to look at the lighting of the pitch. And the plan is to bring a report back to council a little bit later on in the year that has all the costs and looking at lighting and looking at the next stage for approval from council. The cab refurbishment, that project's also been paused while we gather some more information and bring a report back to council. Stage 1 is complete, and what we've currently done contractually is pause the designers, so we're not spending any more money on that design space at the moment. And again, we'll bring that information back to council in a couple of months' time. And that will just go through all the stuff that we've done and recommendations to how best to move forward. Project 1225. Quite a few different fronts open on this one. So obviously we had the first concrete pour up at Tidsbury. The first ring beams of the foundations have been poured. An excellent milestone. 1225, the main design team has furnished us with 11 bids. So we've been incredibly busy reading through them, and we're just progressing through that tender process. And again, because it's a live process, I don't want to talk too much into that detail. Great to get such a huge response from the market from here in New Zealand and overseas. So yeah, no, a great result, and we'll work through that. Financially tracking well. Tidsbury storage program building is on program, and also our design elements are on program as well for 1225. So yeah, really happy with that. Bluff boat ramp, the PCG, which is a mix of staff and external stakeholders, have settled on some pontoon designs, which is awesome. We've also done some geotechnical work around the bay there to understand the rock and bits and pieces, so the designers have progressed in that really, really well. So we've sort of agreed now what the pontoons will look like, how they'll function, so the designers are well underway with that. And we look to bring a report back to the community board showing them what the final designs look like. The next big milestone for us now is to get the consenting for the West Jetty sorted with Environment Southland. They're giving us a good steer on that, and then come back and then go out to the market, should I say, with the designs and get that priced up and crack on. So again, last year we struggled a little bit with the whole consenting piece, but we got there with that now. We're well underway. So again, happy with how Bluff is tracking for us. And finally on the list here, housing innovation. Again, running probably a little bit slower for us for a myriad of different reasons. But we've got resource consent approved, and we are hoping that we'll have building consent approved very shortly. We had a considerable number of RFIs come back to us, which the designers have answered back to the team, and yeah, really looking forward to getting that out. We've had the tender in the market. We've had 2 respondents show favour, so we're going to put that pricing back to those 2 respondents as soon as we have building consent approved. So again, I've shown it amber on this. It doesn't actually carry through onto the risk for some reason, but it's just in the schedule there. So we're just tracking a little bit behind where we wanted to be with that. So that's a real snapshot of all the projects, and open the table for questions.
Thank you, Lee. There's a big body of work on there. Questions? I've got a couple. Just in terms of your the optics of that presentation there, what I would find useful if within the spend to date against plan spend to date.
Okay.
So,
Yep.
yeah, so we can get a good view, particularly with some of those larger projects around, is there a gap between what we thought we'd be spending and what we have spent, either up or down? I think that'd be a good thing for us to see.
Yep.
In that, if that's
Definitely.
well, secondly, with respect to Rugby Park, I note Rugby Southland made some statement in the media around doing a partnership with the ICC around some development at Rugby Park. Have we had any contact with Rugby Southland around that, or
It probably would be one I could probably hand over to Steve on, not from the project point of view.
do we know anything about that?
Yeah, thanks. Through you, Mr. Chair. Look, my team are working with Rugby Southland. And they've done that since the OTM report, which initially talked about the multi-use function, and so we're continuing to work with them.
Right.
Don't think a lot of conversations had over the last month or so, but we will be re-engaging with them shortly.
Okay, cool. Thank you. And then finally, just from my perspective, with respect to 2025 and what's happened in the North Island, are we foreseeing any impact on that project in relation to that? I can't think of what they might be, but just
yeah, I think for the Tidsbury facility, we actually had that very same conversation on Friday with the contractor. They've well procured all their steel, they've well procured all their insulated panel, linings and bits and pieces, glazing's been ordered, so they're well in advance for all their procurement activities. So yeah, no red flags there. Yeah. And obviously the main museum piece is a piece on paper, yes, that design piece, so we should get well clear of any impact from the North Island.
Yeah, I just wonder if we look at when we'd be procuring for the main museum and how that might phase into when they're going to probably be doing quite a bit of heavy lifting up north.
Yeah, no, it's definitely going to be something we need to consider. I suppose a lot of the impacts in North is infrastructure, yeah, civil sort of stuff, which again, not really our kettle of fish.
No.
And until we really progress the design, it's going to be hard to know what materials are impacted, whether it's LBL, glass, you know.
Yeah. So overall,
bit of a crystal ball at the moment.
Keep a watch.
Yeah, definitely a watching brief.
Okay, thank you. No questions. Yeah. Okay, can I have a mover and a seconder, please, to receive?
I'll move that, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Leslie. And Alan, all those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thanks, Lee.
Yes,
really good. Okay. Next item is the financial update. And Patricia's going to present this for us. You're going to stay where you are?
Yeah, I'll stay where I am.
Thank you.
I'm lazy. Okay, so this is the financial report at the end of December in relation to debt, and in relation to debtors, it's the end of January. So at the end of December, the borrowings were sitting at 104 million. We were sitting with 47 million of cash, so we're net debt of 57 million. It's pretty much where we expected to be. We do note that our weighted average cost of debt is still down at 2.34%, but which is lower than last quarter. And you think that's slightly perverse, but what actually we repaid some debt that was actually at much higher rates. But we're going to find that it's going to go up steeply in the coming quarters as we have got some maturities at quite low interest rates, and we're borrowing at over 5 at the moment. So we've gone from one extreme to the other. Then we've also, as planned, just gone out to the market and borrowed 15 million for our capital. It's to fund the capital program. So spend we've already done. In relation to where we sit and within our treasury, we are still got that small breach of treasury policy in relation to hedging. The volatility in the interest rate markets at the moment, and that's moved significantly from when Bancorp did that report for us, is that we're holding a wait and see approach to see where it comes, and we're going to look, then each quarter we're looking at when's the right time to go and do some fixed or floating, as the case may be. And in relation to debtors, things are tracking as I'd expect. We always expect slightly higher outstanding debt coming off that December quarter, just because people with holidays don't tend to pay us directly on time as they might in other parts. In relation to rates debtors, that number's coming down. It tends to come down as we get down to the fourth payment, and then we are actively following up a lot of debt at the moment. From there, and we've provided the additional expenditure in relation to the minimum wage increase, which has been announced by the government. That is going to have some effect on us, and we're taking it up by $1.50 an hour, the minimum wage increase. So we are still working through what that impact will be, but it is our opinion is that it will drive further wage claims. So we'll need to look at that during annual plan, and we've included the sensitive expenditure for the last since the middle of September. Open to questions.
Thank you. Any questions in relation to that report? I have a couple. Just and note, you expect a rise around Christmas time in that arrears, but it's quite a bit significantly more than this time last year, isn't it?
Yeah, it has. And it's sitting in a couple of places, which the detail will come through in the public excluded paper. Yeah.
And then with your reference on page about the links, those that are in arrears with us with mortgages, do we know the data of how many people that are in arrears with us that do have?
If they're still in arrears and have a mortgage, the mortgage holder will have been contacted.
Right.
So we do that on a regular basis. So once they go into arrears, because under the Rating Act, we can actually get payment from the mortgage company, and then the mortgage company claims it from them.
Yeah. So we do that on all occasions, or?
Not on every quarter. So we tend to do it once or twice a year.
Yeah, towards the end of the cycle.
Yeah, it tends to be around the December, January. Yeah. It may be back for the previous year, but we always have that recourse. Yeah. And that's our first recourse.
Yes. Yeah. Our best recourse. Yeah. Okay. No other questions? Okay, can I have a mover and a second to move? Thanks, Ian. Thanks, Alan. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Okay, well, that's really an appendix, isn't it? So it's the Business Enhancement Program. Michael, welcome.
Tēnā koutou, Chair, committee members and Mayor Clark. This is hopefully my first and potentially last presentation of this Business Enhancement Program. As such, I've brought the Information Services Manager here, Mark Radcliffe, as well, so he can listen in, and if there's any detailed questions, might be able to support in answering those questions. Like I say, this is the first time this has been up to this committee. In fact, it's the first time it's been back to any committee or council previously. This funding was allocated as part of the annual plan process to enhance the internal systems and processes within council. It's a pleasure to bring this up and show that we have been doing work in this space and there are improvement projects on track. I'll refer to our overall table and which shows that we are spending throughout the course of the year, but that doesn't, in my turn, just spending the money doesn't actually show progress from that perspective. You need to look at each of the projects and show what we're achieving from that perspective. I would also note, as part of the first table we have presented to the committee, that there is no spend allocated to IT strategy. We do have a number of projects underway for internal system enhancements, but they have yet to get to the stage of implementation, so they will be towards the end of this financial year as they start to eat into that, and they'll probably carry over into the new year. Some of those are around our phone system and a review of how we're providing our hosting or network of services. Some of the key milestones in relation to our project, you would have seen that over time that the property digitisation project, which was actually one of the projects that was started before we put the business enhancement program together, but we wanted to have the overall governance internally across that, make sure we're keeping a watchful eye on it. So that project has been brought into the fold. We did initially have a scheduling issue in relation to that project, but we have now put that back on watch. We're pleased to say we have worked with our partner to get that under control. So it's with pleasure we say we've got that back on track from our perspective, but on watch. Digital preservation, that's an interesting project for me because that actually sets up the ability for historical records to be stored and have the certainty that we are storing those records in the correct manner. The manual form of storage is easier to do from that sense in relation to the digital, and quite often when people do a digital program of such, they overlook the fact that we need to store those records in the correct manner. We've put that in place, we've completed that work, so we're comfortable we've now got the process in place going forward in the creation of our digital record to meet compliance. So that's with pleasure I can say that one. We've also completed a review of our corporate file plan. That particular project was looking at what we need to do in relation to document storage going forward. That will have another implementation component going as we roll out the document storage of our digital record. Our supply chain project, we finished first phase of what I would call our P2P or procure to pay process, and that first phase was the pay component, purchasing aspect. We completed that in phase 1. This is the middle component, which is putting the contract document storage in and actually putting in a contract management process in place. We still have, and I know we're doing it in reverse order, we still have a sourcing and supply project to complete. So as part of this, we will be doing the scoping of that. The reason we haven't put that in scope is we do have some automation in there already, and it would be replacing existing tech. We are in the mindset of trying to replace our manual processes first, then look at what we need to do about replacing our existing tech in those cases. So that project did have an issue, as you'll see in the report, in relation to we didn't quite get the scoping right from that perspective. I think that's why we have a governance board in place to make sure they are achieving the objectives. That did come back and we have reviewed that. One of the things the governance board has decided, the internal governance board, is that we should make sure there's a review so this committee can feel confident that we are having lessons learned from the previous financial project of Technology One, and that we are going ahead with the improvements as we outlaid in our first review report. So we've asked that that be included into this project. The next project that we've got on that list is talking about HRIS, which is actually a Human Resource Information System. HRIS won't mean a lot to a lot of people, but it means a lot to the organisation. This is the start for two things: a communication platform for our staff, but also the ability for our staff to interact at a digital sense. I've highlighted before when I presented the initial BEP program that we've got 110 staff out there approximately that do not have access to this council digitally. This will allow that to occur. It doesn't matter that it's a council device. We have that security arrangement in place that it can actually go over the internet from that perspective. So this particular project is important in getting that in place and getting the certainty around information flow internally. It will also look at replacing potentially, I say potentially, you've got to do a review in each of these projects, the payroll system as well, to make sure that we have linked through data right through for reporting. The last project that I've got on this list is Rates Online. It's exciting to say that we are in the stage of piloting that internally first with our staff from that perspective to make sure that it's operating as we would hope, and then we will look to have a wider arch on that and get that out to our customers and community as soon as possible. I'm sure that will be a great advantage for our ratepayers as we go forward. We will finally be able to do rates online, which will be exciting, I think, from that perspective. I think the breadth of projects you see that we've started off in the enhancement program, a little bit of inward, a lot of getting the foundation right, and a little bit of getting something out there for our customer. I think you'll see a flavour of that the whole way through the program, trying to make sure that we are giving an experience for the customer at the same time. On that note, I'll hand over to questions.
Thanks, Michael. Any questions? Evelyn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kia ora, Michael. When we originally talked about this, whenever that was, seems like a long time ago, that one of the things that you brought up was about the digital security. How have you found the experience over the last year? Is that improved, or are you catching more people trying to infiltrate us? And is this system, do you think, more robust than what we've had in the past?
On that question, I might actually hand over to the Information Services Manager, Mark.
I might do that, Michael. Thank you for that question. Cyber security is front of mind with all we do. Cyber security is a component of each of these initiatives. We also have planned several other specific security implementations, which we're just waiting for some internal resource to be in place to spearhead those. We've certainly seen a continued attack on Invercargill City Council digital resources. We have to use great experience in each system that we put in place to ensure that security really is core to each of those initiatives. So I'm pleased to say we haven't had any intrusions or any information compromise or any downtime to any of our systems over this last period.
Just to follow up, I think it's in front of my mind is that what we're seeing overseas is infrastructure attacks, so water service delivery, things like that. Are we at lesser or greater risk at the moment with how our services are delivered than other places? So how much of what we do is accessible to computer attack in terms of water delivery, etc.?
We did a rigorous piece of work 2 to 3 years ago to separate out the Three Waters infrastructure to ensure that they are in their own entirety entirely resilient to attack or any leakage from Invercargill City Council corporate resources. They remain a key target. You tend to get the highest targets are those with direct financial rewards, so financial institutions are high on the list, and we have I guess flown below that radar because we were not able to provide financial benefit to the bad guys, but we ensure that all of the services that operate our three waters environment are maintained according to a tight renewal schedule to ensure that it doesn't present any vulnerabilities to attack.
Thank you for that, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, it's a good insight. Thank you. Any other questions? No? Okay, thank you for your report. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please, for receiving the recommendations? Thanks, Darren. And seconded by Alan. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Okay. So we now need to move into public excluded.
Just one issue, Chair, and it's remiss of me not to raise this, and I know we have accepted the minutes of the previous report, but back in the sensitive expenditure report, there seems to be a bit of a glitch. So Patricia might be able to help me with that. So it's on page 91 of board books.
Yeah.
And so down the bottom of that expenditure second page, there is a cost for the Bolton Hotel for Sir Tim Shadbolt that's in December last year, given the election was 2 months earlier than that. Is that just a late payment coming through?
That's a late payment coming through. That was Sir Tim's accommodation for the Queen's Memorial. It's just that's the period in which the expense was recorded, so it only hit our system in December.
So just a secondary question to that, up above that, about a third of the way up the page, there is a Queen's Memorial accommodation for the James Cook Hotel. So is that?
It was given, I do believe it's probably given the number of people in Wellington at that time, 2 different accommodation providers were needed for the 2 nights accommodation.
Okay. Thank you. That's me done. Yeah, just wanted to check that.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
Move into public excluded.
Thanks, Leslie. Can I have a seconder for that? Thanks, Barry. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried.